This is Mind Out Loud, where oversharing isn't a crime, it's the whole point. Ready to get uncomfortable? Lori, I have to be honest with you at this moment. I do not want to do this right now. I don't. I don't want to. I'm really questioning the wisdom of even this whole concept of trying to put myself in a position of vulnerability, but also try and provide help to people and as well as myself. And today I just don't want to do it. Like, I feel like if I had an actual therapy appointment with you today, I would be mean and nasty and wouldn't want to sit and for lack of a better term, deal with you. And it's not you, you're my friend.
I don't take that personally at all. No, this is not uncommon. And this is the very reason, Nick, one of them, why so many people don't do their work, because it is work. People think, oh gosh, I'm paying you X amount of dollars an hour. Why aren't you fixing me? I'm telling you what I believe the solutions are. But just like a trainer, they're not going to say, here's all the steps and you don't have to follow a single one. No, you gotta do the work. And people often get irritated or frustrated with their therapist, and that's part of it. But we will also bring that out. Talk about that. Mm-hmm.
Well, then maybe let's talk about that irritation and the work, because, just you saying I have to do the work bugs me, because
right.
why am I in this position to be, I'm a human being. Can't I just be human? Why do I have to work on just simply functioning? And I guess to answer my own question, I'm not naturally in shape. I have to go to the gym to be in shape. So I guess I get that, but I guess it's just frustrating to realize that that I'm just not satisfied with myself just being, I guess. Can't I just be and be happy with me? And I'm not, and it pisses me off. And I don't know how you deal with that as a therapist. And I guess just, I don't know, handle me as you would handle anybody else.
So I would never tell anyone not to have those feelings, right? Because doing this, blocking our feelings, only adds to the accumulating pile of stored feelings inside of our bodies. And the body keeps score, trust me on that. However, if we have a mindset that defaults to negativity, then that's who we are. And we have to figure out how to harness, first of all, identify how we are speaking to ourselves and how we are speaking about others in our mind and sometimes out loud. And we have to intentionally go after recognizing how much of that is negative. And it's something way up there, Nick. It's like, depending on the latest research, 80 to 90% of the thoughts that people ruminate about or that automatically go on in their heads is 80 to 90% a day negative.
Yeah, that's me.
Mm-hmm. So if that's you and that's me as well, we have to work to understand that we're doing it again, and we have to take the steps to then turn it around, even when it doesn't feel like it's working.
Does help me out a little bit, because the work does seem monumental, and I think we mentioned this in one of our earlier episodes. That it does just feel like a mountain to climb, and that it feels like that my negative default is just, it's entrenched. It's who I am. And it just feels so hard to fix it, because the default is just, poor me, and, I don't know. And this is where I turn back on myself and say, like, my inner mean person is saying, shut up, you little bitch, quit your whining and stop. and then it just goes into this madness cycle of telling myself to shut up and man up and quit being a little bitch, sorry. And then that answer in my head saying, well, wait a minute, do the work. You got to do the work. And it's a ping pong.
Yeah. And you're not alone. So we call that shaming the shame, right? And even if it turns you off that I'm using all these clinical terms because they seem super light and fluffy, psychobabbly to a lot of men or women, I got it. I got it. But you just have to ask yourself, do you like where you are? And if you do, fine. And if the people around you who matter to you like where you are, then fine.
Yeah, those answers are no.
Exactly.
I mean,
That's why
I
you're
know my
here.
wife loves me. I know that. But I
Oh,
know
she's
that,
wonderful. And but she also has a default to positive outlook, correct?
yeah,
Right?
that's for sure. She's a very positive person. And again, we've mentioned this too. I don't want my constant negativity to to diminish her light. And so, okay. So see, I work through this in my head, and maybe
Mm-hmm.
this is the work that you're talking about. I'm
Yeah.
trying to pull up on the joystick here of the nosedive of what today feels like, and say,
Yeah.
all right. So that resonates with me when you say, is what you're doing working? And the answer is no, it's not working.
Right.
I
Mm-hmm.
know that I don't like this default poo poo Nick, and I want to change that. Okay,
Yeah.
so you've woken me up there a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
All right, sorry, I'm going to shut up.
No. Yeah. That's fine. Yeah.
We're going to treat this like, this is our next session, and I feel like I would have just crashed into your office or onto your Zoom and just being like, wah. But now that I've
Oh, this
got
is
that,
nothing. This is nothing.
now
Yeah.
that I've got that out of my head
Mm-hmm.
a little bit, I don't know. I kind of feel like I would want you to drive the bus a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah.
Try. I don't know. I mean, and I'm not faking this shit for the people listening. I do try to come on here and be real.
Mm-hmm.
And in all fairness to Lori too, we had a small pre-production meeting today, which we normally don't do, and it seemed like all great ideas. And then I hung up with you, and I was like, I don't want to fucking do this today,
I know.
and I
Mm-hmm.
don't, and it sucks because I like you and I like what we're doing, and I think it just all spiraled into all the doubts that I have, the
Yeah.
doubts that, am I doing this right? Is this a good idea? And all of that, and
Mm-hmm.
okay, enough verbal diarrhea. Help me, help me, help me.
So what you're gonna have to do, and I think you're gonna see how great of a challenge this is. But one of the biggest holdups for so many of our men is, and also some women, they need to hold on to that part that hates this section of them. So we're made up of so many different parts. And the part that we interpret as weak or negative, we hate it. I mean, how are we supposed to feel about that? We're supposed to love it? Well, I'm not going to tell you that you're supposed to love it because that's too unrealistic. But until you are open to the idea of letting go of this self loathing, I hate you, Nick, you're a little bitch, like you just said. Why don't you man up and do it? Okay, well, for some people, that might work great. For the majority of people, it feeds shame. And shame is at the root of every negative behavior, every negative thought, every negative addiction. There's nothing good about toxic shame. There's a difference between short lived guilt, so that I carry a lesson forward. Toxic shame is never going to help you. So I can't help you until you're ready to at least be open to the idea of letting go of such intense self hatred of that part of you.
I don't disagree. Why do we hang on to things that feel bad? So, I mean, there's a large part of me that I just want to say, well, that's just who I am, Lori. That's
Mhm.
me. This is me. And it's hard to admit that that's me because it's part of my personality, but it's a part of my personality that I guess I don't like and I'd like to change.
Mhm.
But man, that feels really, I don't know, scary. How the hell
Yeah.
do I let go of that part?
So many people say that I can't let go of that because, well, okay, so getting to the why is a little bit challenging. But I have done this enough to know that we somehow think if we are penitent or continually paying a repentance piece for some part of us that we don't like, meaning I call it self-flagellation, just really beating yourself up because I don't like this part of me and I don't want anyone else to see it. So I'm just going to beat the hell out of me internally. Then good things can come because I'm not slacking off, or I'm not expecting everything to just come. We have to figure out what it is that is having you hold on to that. But
Okay.
that's often what's at the root for a lot of people. They think they need it without first. First, it takes some exploration to find out why. And I hear so many people say what you just said. That word fear. They're afraid to let that go. And I have to remind them it doesn't make you you. It's not an excuse or permission slip to sit back and do nothing. Mm-mm. We're going to expound upon the good things within you that have helped you create so and achieve so much in your life, but help you get to the point of recognizing that this self-loathing, this self-hatred that fuels toxic shame serves no one.
Okay. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that let's go down that path then.
Okay.
How does that work? And lastly, there's a part of me that feels like that's what motivates me. Is that,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's true or not, to be honest. It's kind of what I feel like, beat the crap out of me, tear me down. And then maybe that's what will kind of get me through the apathy and move me forward. But I don't think that's working. So.
Okay. Because I have heard some clients say that, and I'm not master of all the universe. I don't know what motivates every single person. And I'm certain that there are some people out there for whom negative self-talk in some weird way might work. Typically overall, everything that I've read, everything that I've seen, everything that I've been exposed to, it's not helpful. But here's the answer to your question. What we often say as therapists is we want to find the balance. We want to find the in between. We're still going to keep that part of you, Nick, that incites you to get up and go, but it doesn't have to dive so deeply into I'm a loser. Why was I ever born? Why? I'm not saying that these are yours, but I'm just drawing from a huge well of experience here.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. Those I say that frequently. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Yeah. Let's go.
Okay. So the one thing I want to let our viewers or listeners know is that you and I right now are not at the point where we're taking into account brain chemistry. So let's just, put that out there to our viewers and letting them know that there are ways now. This didn't exist for me in my 20s, 30s, 40s, and I only found out about it in my 50s. There are ways to test your brain chemistry. You got to be careful which test you take, because you want one that analyzes the 24 genes that are responsible for mood, elevation, and regulation. You can do that now. And that together with these coping skills helps you have more days of emotional stability, uplifting outlook, I should say.
I'm excited about that kind of testing. And we'll get to that in this series of podcasts. Lori's talked to me about it before, and so it's sort of like a 23andMe or DNA test, but more for your brain chemistry. And that's exciting. And I can't wait to get to that part.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. What's next in the fixing of me?
Okay. So that I wanted to bring out, and then medical side. We always have to go over that as therapists, just to because we're not doctors. Okay, setting that aside, that we've ruled out anything else. Then we know it's an internal dialogue problem. So the more that people allow their brains to just go on the automatic and without realizing how much of that is in the mire, in the muck, the negativity, that affects your brain chemistry. Did you know that?
I think so. Yeah, I had heard that. And it was an interesting word that you just used, that you said your internal dialogue, not monologue, because it does feel like there's, and I don't know what bipolarism is. I don't believe I'm in that ballpark, and I know people who do deal with that, and it is a very difficult mental situation to be in. But I do have multiple voices in my head. My gosh, I am never going to be hireable by anybody that might listen to me.
Actually, you will, Nick, because you're the one who's addressing this. So, but I interrupted you. Do you want to finish that thought, or do you want me to go into what I was going to say?
No, I do feel like there's multiple voices, especially on some days, on the bad days, where there is that person that person is me, berating myself. So when you said dialogue, that really kind of triggered for me that you do as a therapist, and that made me feel good for a moment in your arms, because you understand that it is a dialogue that I'm having. And so, yeah, keep going down there. It for a moment just made me feel like, yes, you understand.
Oh my gosh. And you wouldn't believe how many other people struggle with this, and just no one talks about it. So the reason that let me clarify for anyone listening or watching. These are not auditory hallucinations. You're not actually hearing a voice. We're not talking about schizophrenia, nothing along those lines. We are talking about there may not be anything auditory, but we know what's being spoken in our minds. So one time I did a training, and it was so eye-opening. They had the person who was the volunteer sit in the front of the room. First, we all had to write down many of our negative thoughts that we say to ourselves, connecting it to a bad situation that occurred in our lives, right? So we all did that. And then the volunteer, she sat in the front of the room, and each one of us, they were on little tear outs. Each one of us got one of the automatic negative messages and took a chair behind her. So she was trying to recite into herself, I have good things coming to me, or whatever the mantra may be, right? Okay. So then the instructor would point, and then each of us would take a chair and sit behind her and say, you're a liar.
Oh my gosh.
You're never going to get anywhere. And then the instructor would point to the second, and she'd sit down and she'd say, no one likes you anyway. There's a reason why you have no friends.
Oh, I would crumble.
Yeah, there were like 15 voices all speaking at once while she's just trying to tell herself that she's good enough. And tears were just falling down her face because she had sympathy and empathy for that younger girl who's been carrying all these messages forward all the way up until her 30s.
Ooh. So is that supposed to help you?
You talked about the teardown, right?
Yeah.
This is why therapy is challenging, because that's the teardown. We don't realize how much we are stacking our own selves against us. So that is difficult. Yes, that's very difficult. I'm not telling clients that I don't do that with them because I'm just one. That's a group session, and you don't have to do that. But you can begin to explore, what are all the other seats that are filled in the bus? What are they saying to me, the driver?
Ooh, boy, that's intense. There's a part of me that wants to feel that and see what that's like, and there's a part of me that just wants to no, because I feel like I hear it already. I know what those things say. And it doesn't feel good, and you're right. And it hasn't served me to this point. I can't imagine anybody that would sit here and say these things serve me. So I'm continue to do it. And yeah, the work is, I understand this part. It is like going to the gym, but boy, it's hard to pick yourself up and go to the gym some days, and it's hard too. And it's hard to admit that you have to do mental gymnastics to feel better. So okay, I'm slipping back into the wah.
Well, it's hard to do. It is, even though I know all of this stuff. I'm going to be very frank and honest about my limitations too. I still fall into this trap because I just get tired, and then that part of me that gets angry is like, why can't it just be normal? I'm so sick of this. So of course, we're humans. We're human beings.
Why can't I just eat a bag of potato chips and look thin and sexy? Exactly. Come
on. Oh man.
All right.
I love that.
Yeah. I guess, are we at the point here? do like what I don't know how to fix this though.
Mhm. Okay. So right now we're still on CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy. So what I would have you do between because I mean we could do it right now, but what I would have the client do between now and the next appointment is to begin to write down all of the negative things that they say to themselves often. You're boring. I'm you'll never measure up. You are an imposter. You you are too much of a people pleaser and therefore you sell yourself short. The list can be endless. And we do not realize how much of our time is spent immersed in that language that really brings us down. They did a study once, Nick, where they talked negatively to two rooms, to different types of no, same type of plant, but in two different rooms. Talked negatively all day long and just took turns with the scientists who were doing it. Negatively to one, you're a piece of shit. You're never going to grow. You're ugly to boot. You know. And in this one, it was just positive things and positive energy. And what do you think the results are?
Get out of here. Tell me the plants responded to that.
Yes, they
Oh my
do. All
God.
you got to do is look it up. Yes. There's an energy, there's a higher vibration to positivity. This is why it's so important that we do the work to get ourselves out of that spot, even when we don't feel that it's working. It's like adding water to a bucket. You keep doing the bucket's not full, but that water, let's just assume evaporation doesn't exist. The water's not going anywhere. And so then you add more to the next day, more and more and more. Eventually it's full. So you know you have enough to make your brain work for you instead of against you.
I'm going to start talking nicer to my plants.
I'm I'm not you're going to think I'm nuts, but this is true. This is just try it. Just try
Yeah,
it. If you
I
can.
should, because I've been struggling with some of my plants, and maybe it's, oh my
Mhm.
God, maybe it's me. Maybe
It's your
that's why.
negativity.
Oh
Yeah.
my
Oh my
gosh. So I'm killing my house plants is because of my Boo Radley mood.
God. It's funny that you say that because way back in high school, before I was going to leave, oh no, my light fell off. I'll just start with way back in high school. Okay. Way back in high school, when I was going to leave for college, my boyfriend, he gave me a plant and he said, this plant signifies if our relationship is going to make it or not.
Oh,
Yeah, don't do that to me. And so, because all of my fear and anxiety went into taking care of that plant, it died. So ever since then, I'm like, I don't have a green thumb. I can't keep anything alive. But it's because I got to get that fear removed. If I even want to do it, I don't want to do it right now.
yeah.
Get that fear removed, and then know if I simply learn about how to take care of a plant, and then have positive energy around it. I'm not kidding. I know this sounds woo woo to people, but I'm telling you, try it. It does work.
All right. Well, if nothing else, then maybe you've given me some tips to keep my house plants alive.
And your wife will thank me for that, I think.
Yeah. All right. Again, pretend that I'm your client, and this is second time I've seen you, really. What else do you need to know from me to try and
We need to
formulate?
go.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. I do that a lot to you. We need to go into your timeline, Nick, because we stopped at high school. So I need to know. I take everyone through an entire life history of it's called a trauma timeline. And I can already hear people going, oh, trauma timeline. Well, it's anything that's with a capital T that was really upsetting, or a lowercase t that still hangs with you today. So anything less than nurturing. And that's when I write this stuff down because it's important to me, and I'll tell you why. So can we pick off from where we left off?
Yeah. And I'll share as much as I can, and whatever I can't share with you on this show right now, I will share privately with you. Which I hate to say that, because I did promise that our audience would hear all of me, but there's definitely some things that might be a little too sensitive.
Sure.
But I think people will understand that. Another big thing, my parents filed for divorce when I was 19. So I was a sophomore in college. And that hit me really hard. For some reason, I just, going all through high school, I saw a lot of kids in my class whose parents were getting divorced. And I always kind of felt quite proud that my parents were still together. And so when that bomb dropped in my sophomore year of college, I thought, whoa, what? Really? Like how? Why? Everything seemed fine to me. Come to find out, things were not fine with them. And then I wondered, I took it out on my mom for no reason. I don't need to air all of their dirty laundry. But it was, I took it out on her for some reason. I felt bad for my dad. My dad was 16 years older than her. So I think there was a bit of me that felt empathetic to this guy whose wife left.
Yeah.
But she left for very good reasons, as I found out later. But anyway, I was just so bummed about that. And it also, it kind of detonated my home base.
There you go. That's it. Detonated my home base. Yeah.
Yeah.
Said that perfectly. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my house in New Jersey, where I spent most of my years growing up, is farm. We talked about it. The farm. It was country. It was a beautiful nature respite kind of place for me. And so now it wasn't immediately gone, but when I would go back to visit, on college breaks and stuff, mom's not there. My dad's in a terrible mood. The house is starting to fall into disrepair. And I just wanted to avoid that at all costs. So I wasn't, even on, winter breaks, long, like month-long college breaks, I was staying in my school town. I wasn't going back home because it wasn't home anymore.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So that was definitely hurtful. And my parents, I'm glad they did what they did in a way. They have their own happiness to think about. And at the time I was just being, I guess, selfish about it. And, an immature 19-year-old kid, not knowing how to deal with that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not proud the way I dealt with it. I shunned my mom for a couple of years, which was unfair to her. And, I didn't deal with it very well.
Yes. Okay.
Kind of went wild in college a little bit. I wasn't a party kid in high school, but sophomore year I got into a fraternity, and it was this is funny. So I got into a fraternity, but they're like a good boy fraternity. They had a strict anti-drug policy. They didn't haze or anything like that.
Really?
We did a ton of
ASU?
No, it was at York College of Pennsylvania where I went.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And, we did all kinds of community service, and we were largely known as the nerds on campus, which was fine because I didn't want to get into something, doing stupid hazing crap and all that stuff.
Oh.
But we had plenty of our college parties, and I was, drinking my face off, and finally started to get some attention from girls because I had finally grown. Here we go.
Oh, here we go. Yeah. Okay.
I had so my senior year after I graduated high school is when I finally sprung up.
Mm-hmm.
I finally started to grow. And so I wasn't a tiny little boy anymore. So that started to attract some of the girls, and I was drinking and just partying my face off and, having a good time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so you can read into that what you will. My grades tanked, but by the end of it, I managed to pull out my usual average. I think I graduated with like a B overall, so like a 2.9 or something. Good enough for me.
Hey, you got out there, you got the degree. So
I did. Mm-hmm. There was a tremendous heartbreak after college with a girl that I had met, who, God, it's a terribly long story, which I won't bore everybody with now, but she was just gorgeous. My first, kind of love at the time, did not work out, dragged on over the course of 3 years of being, in my life, out of my life, blah, blah, blah kind of stuff. And part of the reason why I eventually left Pennsylvania was because I was kind of tired of running into her and tired of the drama that was coming with that. And I'm like, I need to get the hell away from this situation.
Yeah.
And that was one of the big driving factors to move to Arizona.
Okay.
Yeah.
That actually is pretty intuitive of you, because it takes us, what am I trying to say? We have to have some self-awareness to know that, okay, I don't like that I'm not disciplined enough to cut myself off from this person, but I also understand that I'm not, because there's this intermittent reward system. They call it the slot machine reward system, where you sometimes get rewarded, uh, and then your body is flooded with feel good hormones. But mostly what follows is all the drama, all the ups and downs. That's hard to leave. So you had the internal awareness or the insight to know this isn't good for me. And also when it happens, I'm not able to resist. So I'm leaving. That's actually really good, Nick.
Yay
That's
me.
yay you. You're doing some
Yay.
things right. You see?
Yeah. Yay me. Yeah, so that was that move to Arizona. Things started to go well. Career started to take off. Mid 2005. I got a piece of news, and this is where I'm just going to have to protect myself a little bit on this show. A piece of news that just kind of rocked me and changed the way I viewed myself, and the way my self-worth.
Okay.
That just really kind of shattered my foundation of self-worth and who I was and what I could offer others and how I felt about what I could offer others. And that just, it sucked.
Okay.
That was really, really hard. And those are kind of like I guess the big, that was my homework for you, to write down some of the big things. And those are the I guess the big milepost moments that I think of it like train tracks, the switching of a train track.
Yes.
Um,
That's where there was a separation of self. So we call that there's a splice, right? Part of you just gets cut off and shut down. So you'll have to tell me what that is in private so that I know how I can explain without giving, and our viewers are going to understand, and listeners are going to understand. There are some things you can't say on here that you can say to me.
Yeah.
And I do need to know, but we don't have to go into grand detail either, because for some people, reliving these things in too great a detail brings them more harm than good.
Right.
So I want them to know that as well. It's a general discussion. Some people feel better telling it all in a neutral, non-judgmental third-party place where they know it's not going anywhere. Some people cannot do it. And so I'll just ask I'll support them through that and let them know I understand why, and help them get to me a vague overview so I then know which modality, how to help them best, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I kind of, actually, it'd be fun to put a small pause on my discussion. And this brings us to a moment where I think is valuable for people listening about, maybe this is what therapy is going to look like for you.
Yes.
And for the folks, like, maybe even if I was sitting in front of you, I don't know that I would, in a private room, tell you some of the private things. Is it easier to write some of this stuff down? Even for your own self? If I wrote things down, do I show you? This just kind of help me better understand this kind of moment where you reach a point of something that you're uncomfortable about, and it's clearly uncomfortable, and that discomfort is causing you a lot of pain, but we have to get through it, and you need to know what it is. So how do I overcome that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So a couple of things that we want people to know. When you're feeling that way, it's important to communicate it to your therapist, because if they're trained well and in tune, they're going to know instantly, oh, okay, we got a big thing coming up here. And so treat this person with the utmost respect, but really be on your toes right now, because this is a big deal. And this will be a game changer if they come and go, or decide, or if they keep coming, or if they say, that's it. There's no way I'm doing that. So it's important to communicate, number one, to your therapist that you're really uncomfortable discussing what you think might be important, but that you're unable to. That's step number one. Number two, I want everyone out there to know that there are three exceptions to confidentiality. Every single client will know this coming in, because they are to be warned. It's required by us, by the board, and also by law, to tell them when we are mandatory reporters. I'm talking about 18 and older. I don't see kids. So everything is private and confidential, everything, except for in these three areas. If you are an active, and I can't stress that word enough, an active suicidal danger to yourself. I do not mean, Lori, I've been in so much pain, I just don't want to wake up. If I had to report that, Nick, I would have no job. No, that's not what I mean. It means I've had it. I've got a gun. I'm pulling the trigger, Lori. Then I have to call people to keep you safe. So that's one. Number two is if you're in active danger to someone else. So if someone else is going to get murdered, or whatever the case may be. And then the third is if a judge in a robe says, wow, there's something illegal happening, and I'm going to get those records. This does not mean attorneys. Anybody can sue anybody. We have our attorneys too. Not that we want to invite lawsuits, but a subpoena by a lawyer doesn't mean anything unless a judge decides. So knock on wood, that's never happened to me. But I let everyone know those three things before they say a word to me. Okay. So that opens up the door to letting them know that most of what they're going to tell me has nothing to do with that. Most of the time it doesn't. It's very, very, very embarrassing, humiliating, shameful things that have happened to them that they don't know how to talk about. And so it creates this lead-like weight inside their bodies, inside their subconscious, that they don't know what to do with it. So it becomes compartmentalized.
Do I have to worry about not wanting to say things to you and feeling like I can't get good therapy? Am I expected to eventually feel comfortable and say some of the things that are really, like, I guess I am a little bit stuck on this part about how I would deal with my issues with a therapist, and how others might, when you get to this point of real raw vulnerability.
Right.
What am I expected to do?
I'm so glad you bring that up, Nick. You know why? Because there are some people who cannot go there. They want to get help, but they cannot go there. And there is a way to treat that as well. So that is called accelerated resolution therapy, which I've discussed with you, which is an offshoot of EMDR, eye movement, desensitization, and reprocessing. These are all neurobiology, neuroscience. And in accelerated resolution therapy, you do not have to repeat the story. You do not. The way that, in fact, whenever it almost seems counterintuitive, at least it did to me at first. Whenever anyone shows emotion, we're supposed to immediately go right back into eye movements and have the brain do the work of the left hemisphere, connecting to the right, shoving it through the executive functioning part, the frontal lobe, so that you lose the reactivity, but not the knowledge. So I'm trained in both of those. Some people really want to just get it out somewhere that's going to go up into the ether, disappear somewhere. And others do not. So you don't have to relive everything to also get help.
I love that you explained that, because I'm a little scared to continue with this process of therapy. but I love because I think, you get to a point where you're like, man, I don't want to tell somebody this stuff.
I
I don't
know.
want to talk
Yeah.
about it, but I also want to get help. But I'm glad to know that things can still be effective, and with a trained professional like yourself, I can get the help I need, and I don't have to relive all the horrible stuff. And that's big. And I think eventually I probably would go into some of these places with you.
Mhm.
But yeah, okay. I think we're past that part. I
Okay.
like the fact that that I don't have to be a complete open book. I can
Mm-mm.
still work through these things until I'm comfortable, until I get to a place where I'm comfortable.
Right. And some therapists early on may not know that, right? Because it does take some experience. The more training you get, the better. And everyone, at least, I don't know about PsyDs, doctors of psychology, but LPCs like myself, masters in the degree of science, we are required every 2 years to recertify. And that means re-educate. So the longer you're in it, the more you know. And we do know that there are people for whom the traumas are too great that they cannot speak about them. And so that's what this getting trained in this modality helps them do. You can still heal. Yes. Hmm.
Okay, good news. Yay.
Hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so let's shine the light back on me and what I've been talking about, and continue progressing me through therapy, through your discovery, I guess, or what you believe would be. Where do you want to take me next? Where, if I'm laying bare again, where am I going next?
Okay. So this is where I'm a little uncertain. Let me just talk to you about it because here is where I would try to get a little more information. So I would try, and maybe that can't be done on air. I would try to ask you, can you give me a vague overview? That's what I would do in session. And you told me to keep my therapist hat on. So
Yeah.
that's what I would do in session. Mhm.
Okay. As it applies to this one thing that kind of hurts me,
The
just that,
2005, the
yeah.
2000, yeah.
It's health related.
Okay. Health related. All right.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's personally health related is what I would say.
There you go. Okay.
Yeah.
Got
Yeah.
you. And that would be, just so that I know, that would be something that you would not really want to go. Let's just say that you don't want to go in depth on that, right?
Hmm.
Okay. Then I would talk to you all about what accelerated resolution therapy is. And we would just do a little bit more of a back and forth today. And then I would set you up for that. Then we would do that next time. We do accelerated resolution therapy next time.
Okay. All right. And you get into those types of things just to help people understand like the timeline of things.
Mhm.
If it is truly a patient's second or third visit to the office or online, whatever's comfortable for them, are those the types of things that happen at that point? Or does it take? I guess in my mind, I believed that this type of process takes months, years
Mhm.
to get to these kinds of fixes, of therapies. But you're telling me that I you would start to work me through some of this stuff even on session 2, 3.
I would. Now,
Okay.
now I do have the responsibility to make sure that resourcing has taken place. What that means is how dysregulated does the client become? Does he or she know how to bring herself back into a calm place? So, that's not something I've talked with you about because there are places that we're not able to go to on the air. So, when you get to a really, really low place, how do you get out of it right now?
Yeah. Uh, Gosh, I feel like I don't know how.
Mhm.
Sometimes I guess my go-to would be I need to get outside. I need some nature therapy, even if it's just even a walk around the block or go sit by the lake that's nearby at the park. some kind of just sunlight, fresh air thing. Preferably, I would go on a camp trip or something, where I could really immerse myself and have an extended period of time in nature. Nature is my church, my medicine for sure. Quickly, I might resort to a little bit of marijuana.
Yeah.
I might just, have a gummy and just let some of that negativity just fade away. But there's so much guilt with that because I feel like it's a little bit of cheating. I feel like I'm not really dealing with any problems. I'm simply masking them. And I know that, and it bothers me because yes, I could sit in my dirty diaper all day and feel crappy for maybe 3 days, or I could, treat it with a gummy or a joint or something. And that's where I'm like, man, I can definitely tell how people can quickly and easily fall into
Yes.
drug addiction. And boy, oh boy, it until I started trying weed just about 10 years ago, that was the first time it really dawned on me how easy that could be. It's different topic, different discussion for another
Oh, it's
day.
true though.
Yeah.
Whenever I hear anybody, point to a homeless person or someone who's clearly on drugs and say something self-righteous, in my mind, I just think,
You have
you don't
no
know, you don't know
idea.
what you're doing. You don't know.
Yeah.
You're basically inviting a tsunami of trials because all we are is X amount of number of trials away from being that same person. We
Yeah.
don't know how resilient we'll be based on the severity of what's happening to us. So,
Yeah.
mhm,
Nope. So that's one of my other therapies.
mhm,
Another one is just to rely on my wife, go sit and talk to
mhm,
her, or,
yeah,
we love playing Yahtzee together. Let's just sit and play a game. But there again, a lot of guilt comes with that because I'm shirking my duties. I feel like there's plenty of work I should be doing instead of trying to make myself feel better. So now there goes a whole nother wasted day where I should be working on this or working on that or trying to earn money. I'm a freelancer, so it's
yeah,
constant hustle. And when I'm not
yeah,
hustling, I feel bad. And
mhm,
so all of those things that make me feel better in my day when I'm having a poopy day
mhm,
also make me feel shameful and guilty because I'm
exactly.
taking the time to treat myself and they all come. I can feel better, but it's going to come at a price.
Yeah. So this is the part that I'm going to go back to. That's that part that you have to, I'll work with you, release that part of you that hates that. You need to stop and talk to your wife. You need to stop and go outside. This is resourcing. That's what I mean by resourcing. It's also called grounding, which is why going outside is it's so soothing to the central nervous system. And it's not woo woo stuff. This is backed up by science. It slows down the production of the stress hormones. It slows your heart rate. It slows your breathing. You feel less heavy. You feel more hopeful. It lights up different neural pathways in your brain. And the fact that some minds need this process is something that we have to accept. And I think that's where you're stuck.
For sure. Um, yeah. Because accepting that is accepting, and in my mind, accepting that I need that is accepting that something is wrong with me.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
and I know that it's not wrong. I just know that it's me, and I
Yeah.
haven't accepted me.
Right. And we don't like that part of ourselves.
No.
Right. Who would? Who would? That part of yourself that's slowing yourself down, that is in a dark place. We don't like that. And so, but yet we think that we're helping ourselves by that self-flagellation again, the straps on the back. No, it only makes that process longer. Even if we think we're being productive, it's still all in there. So we're hardly the creative person that we are when we know how to let go of that. Okay, but we were talking about resourcing. So the reason that I know that you're able to calm yourself down, I know you don't like how long it takes. I know that you lose efficiency in your mind, right? Got it. But I also know you know how to do it. Because of that, I would then, yes, I would definitely go to these places. I sure would. People are under the misconception, because it used to be this way, that therapy has to take 150 years. No, if you're going to address a certain issue or a certain problem and you have someone trained in these modalities that involve neuroscience, it's not supposed to take that long. I hate it when people ask me, well, how long? Because when I was trained, they said 6 or 8 sessions, but lots of people who are trained in EMDR and accelerated resolution therapy hear many different timelines. But in other words, there's a beginning, there's a middle, and an end. And then
That's
some people just come back for tweaks. Mhm.
okay. Well, that's interesting, because and this is part of the reason that I've been a little reluctant to get into therapy at all is, and again, it's back to, media and what you see. I'm a Howard Stern fan. I've listened to him for years. I haven't listened lately, but I think he's really good. I love his interview style, and it's
Mhm.
something as an entertainer myself, something I would like to aspire to. And he's been very open about his therapy journey too. But he said he's still. I mean, he's been in therapy for decades, and I heard that, and I thought, well, how I don't want to go into this with the idea or the feeling that I may never get out of it either. I don't
And
want to have to do
yeah.
this all my life.
And that's not the if that's your approach and it's supposed to be ours too, then you need to let that therapist know. Because I've let my clients know this. I try to all the time. Some got the message that they couldn't come back. So it depends on who you are. Some people simply feel much, much better. So after the beginning of the series of treatments, and then they've stabilized, then they just want to come once a month. Then
Mhm.
I'm here. I'm here. Ethically, I need to tell you that we have a treatment plan, and there's an end date to this. But I'm here. I'm not trying to shove you away, but I'm also not going to take advantage of you either. So it just depends on who you are. I regularly go to therapy, even when things are going well, because I just want to make sure that I'm using my extra tool. I find it helpful. That's me personally, though. That's not everybody.
That's interesting. It's good to
Mhm.
know too. See, these are the things that I need to hear.
Mhm.
And I imagine these are the things that others need to hear as well. I guess at this point, I kind of, here's another question I have as far
Yeah.
as therapy goes. Um, how do I stop keeping my eye on the clock? As as if I'm
Yeah.
sitting, and are all sessions like an hour, or like how do I not just look at the clock and feel like, oh crap, we're almost done, I've got so much more to say.
Well, that I don't know how to help you with, because that is a challenge. What I do is I let my clients know it's my job to watch the clock. Do you want the clock to face you? It's just a little one. Do you want it to face you? Because some want to, it's 50 minutes long, the session, 50 minutes long, because we need 10 minutes for booking and billing and to be a human and get some water. But some want the clock facing them, so they know that they want to bring up 4 topics. And okay, I got to stop at this time. Others say, no, I want you to keep track of the time and then give me a reminder at such and such. And so I'll set my own reminder and let them know. And others just want to go. Hmm.
See, you're answering my questions, and I'm feeling better about all of this.
Good, 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 good.
Um, so
Because
okay,
it's hard to know. I mean,
yeah,
I never want to, it's my responsibility never to leave someone in a highly dysregulated place. Now, that wouldn't be you, because you have a lot of control over your emotions when you want to, right?
yeah,
Well,
I guess.
again, I'm not, as a therapist, I'm not seeing what's going on in your brain, but
Oh, I would never put that on you. Even if my worst enemy, I would never want you to see what's going on my brain.
I don't
Uh,
know. I think if you could walk around in mine, you'd be comfortable
yeah.
doing so. Yeah. But it's my job to make sure that I leave enough time so that someone doesn't feel so highly anxious or terribly doom and gloom mood. It's my job to get us to a calmer place. And that's the resourcing I'm talking about. So I will give, hey, we've got about 10 minutes left. I do not want you to feel like you're left hanging. after telling me such important stuff. I care. I care about you, and I care about you feeling calm enough to have what you need to be able to walk through the door today. So I do let them know. Mhm.
You're great.
When I
Great.
remember, I'm human too, though.
I feel like, Lori, I feel like you're going to have more clients than you can ever handle after these episodes air. You're very good.
Thank you.
You know, I think we had thought about taking our conversation in a different direction today, but I'm glad we're at where we're at. Is there anything that you want to leave me with today? And do I get, as a normal patient, do I get homework? Are there things that you tell me to do or work on before I see you next?
Yes, with you, I would, because I really would like you to start noticing how often you spend time beating yourself up internally with that dialogue, with all those people on the bus saying things. And you don't have to do it all day, every day, Nick, because we don't, like you said, we don't want to sit in our dirty diaper. We just want to begin to notice. One of the ways that we get out of the dirty diaper is to begin to notice how much time do we spend in it unknowingly. Mm-hmm.
Good. Yeah. And I know I've heard journaling is always very good. It's a habit I have not been able to get myself into, but I can certainly see where and why that would be very effective. Lori, I could talk to you for hours, and I know that, and that's why I started a podcast with you, so I can talk to you for hours. I think you're very, very, very wise, and I love chatting with you.